one of the laws of nature is you cannot deny growth. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dysfunction that we experience around us is because human beings have been denied their proper soul growth and they haven't been given the tools to unlock their potentiality. We need to understand and occupy this electromagnetic process in
Mhm.
order to properly receive the higher energetics that are coming in.
What if it was part of your deep knowing that every thought you have, every emotion you feel, and every connection you make is shaped by electromagnetic forces? Have you ever felt the mysterious pull towards another person or place, or experienced a moment of profound clarity that seems to come from nowhere? What if these are manifestations of the same invisible threads that dance between our cells and move mountains and bind galaxies together? I'm Colleen Akiko, here with sacred artist and teacher Daniel Strawn in this We Be the Change series, Navigating the New Energetics. In this segment, Unlocking Spiritual Growth, we continue exploring ancient wisdom to learn more about seeing ourselves not as separate beings, but as dynamic energy systems in constant interaction with the universe around us. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope hearing this episode leaves you feeling more inspired, more connected, and equipped to fully embody your purpose. We'll be posting bonus content for subscribers at songrise.live, where you can also request your special e-guide gift out of your head into your light. Here we go.
We need to understand and occupy this electromagnetic process in
Mhm.
order to properly receive the higher energetics that are coming in. The magnetic aspect is what you've generated in response to the spirit.
Yeah.
So you could say that the electrical is the inspiration and the magnetic is the result of the inspiration. That's one thing. But thinking in terms of things like this, like taking a journeyman's electrician's manual and translating it into spirituality, it goes a long way. So,
I bet.
yeah,
And I'm sure there's
closed
Sure.
circuit.
The power of mentorship.
It's kind of like, after a while, so the reason Cap Childress was such a great mentor and spiritual teacher is, first of all, one of the greatest lessons he ever told me on the first meeting was he said, be still. And he was an architect. So he had an architect's office. And on the shelf, architects, they have little blocks. They have all these like toys. They have all these examples of different materials right there. And so he just said, be still. And he did this little ceremony where he picked 4 or 5 or 6 of these little samples of different kinds of materials. Maybe ceramic, glass, wood, metal, stone. And he shuffled them. He essentially did a tarot reading with these. Yeah.
Wow.
And he kept rearranging them, and he arranged them about 3 or 4 times in different ways. And then he just let it sit. And he said, these materials might never, ever have been together like this before, which was like, wow. It's just, this makes what we're doing relevant. Play, right?
Yeah.
And learning how to play in a different way, and then understanding material. So all this went into my white stock, into my warehouse.
Your bones.
Yeah. And this is about my relationship to a teacher. And I could just go on forever about the importance of mentorship
Yes.
and how to foster growth in another, because one of the laws of nature is you cannot deny growth. It's not allowed.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dysfunction that we experience around us is because human beings have been denied their proper soul growth and they haven't been given the tools to unlock their potentiality.
Yes.
There's lots of opinions, but if you follow the money, you find out that it's a big manipulation that's not about the human experience on this planet. Right?
Yeah, it's a selfish system that is very,
Well,
Wisdom from other cultures.
that's why it's yeah, the importance of studying other cultures and ways and interacting with. I find myself to be very lucky to have dealt with such a variety of wise people, and I didn't agree with them all. Some of them I'm pissed off with. Yeah, not really, but just kind of like, hey, I said, okay, we agree. Yeah. But there was this one story that catches me, and it's about an African tribe, and there was these children, and they do everything together. It's like they have a cohort. So the village children have their own society and their own culture and their own ways.
Unity consciousness and indigenous wisdom.
And there's a photograph, and it's of all these African children, and they're sitting in a circle, and they're all facing into the circle with their legs out. So it's a beautiful mandala
yeah,
of these young people, right?
yeah,
They're connected in such a beautiful way. They're like one being. And like the core is about sharing joy. And they have no notion of competition. It's all about harmony as a baseline.
yeah.
So that's an extraordinary potentiality right there.
Oh, absolutely. I remember reading a book, I think from the 70s, that you may be familiar with, of an American journalist who was thinking she was going to be doing a story on an Aboriginal tribe. And instead of doing the story, she basically found herself with her purse and all her belongings ceremonially burnt up. And she went on a walkabout that
Yeah.
lasted several weeks. And what she shared from that time, I think I must have read the book 7 or 8 years ago. It still resonates because it's timeless. And it is very much along the lines of what you're describing with the African children.
Wonderful to grow up with a sense of unity like that.
They didn't even need to speak. They just were so tuned in, they would pass thought by thought. And I'm thinking of when, I think it was the first nights when they went to sleep, they all laid down on the ground, and one person on one end would just think good night, and they'd tell each other good night, and they go all the way down the line, and the last person would say good night. And then only the last person spoke, but they were all speaking in their minds, and the last person spoke out loud. And she didn't understand it at the time, and then after some time, she did. It's
It's a
beautiful.
collective mind.
Collected. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. And it's really an aspect that is so needed now in terms of like coming back to the unification principle. They're all an expression of one thing, and that's called the opportunity of creation, all our magic. So anyway, I'm not done with 5 yet. Started talking about 7. So in the pentagramic system, there's this thing called conception, and that's a lot of fun.
Can be.
And then 9 months later, you've got a B.
Yes.
But somewhere halfway through that, there's this thing called the quickening. Okay. And this has to do with the direct relationship between a human being and the highest of creation. Because this quickening is when the creation recognizes a pentagram. So the fetus develops, and when it becomes a full pentagram, not totally fully developed, but when it says, I'm going to be a pentagram, the creation recognizes that. 'Cause it's all about these frequencies, right? So it puts a pentagram will create a frequency, and that frequency is recognized by creation. And then that's when the soul spirit joins the pentagram. 5 and 2.
Complete.
Yeah, and then it can get on with itself. But that's a really important part, because there's a lot of argument about the belief of original sin. And so far, I've discerned that original sin is a lie. That's not about unity. That's about someone trying to interfere and separate out. Sin, S-I-N, what that really means is missing the point. So
Literally.
the missing of the point was that we are not whole and unified and in the unification principle of creation. And that came from outside as a manipulation to be able to tap into and harvest human soul force, raw spirit. That's a very heavy point.
That is, it undermines a whole system way of seeing that is more the rule than the exception. Let's
Well, you're
say.
not allowed to question that doctrine
Mhm.
within level of religion.
Yeah.
The children in the African forest who are completely telepathic with each other
Yes.
and have an organic life, they would go, huh? What's that? It's a
Sure.
foreign idea. It doesn't go with the design.
I'm reading also a book on ancient wisdom from Molokai in Hawaii.
Yeah.
The kahuna who's writing the book, same thing. And I speak as someone who has a lot of Christian conditioning and had a lot of divine experiences as
Yes.
Christian. And I still have only love and appreciation for Jesus. So this writer is talking the same thing in that part of the world, that they grew up as children knowing only the beauty of the waves and the rhythm of the seasons and the ripening of the coconuts and the fish and being one with and part of all of nature. And original sin was a concept that had never been thought.
Yeah, that's part of the control construct that we're suffering. But let's go back to Jesus on, since you brought up religion, the Sermon on the Mount. And obviously, I'm in agreement with Yogananda and his understanding of Jesus. Jesus is a being who's been around the world. So I don't think of him in context of the Bible. I think of him in context with the human potentiality, which he exampled. Religion being a construct that's trying to profit off life in a way, or it's also a way. Religion, my liege.
What is that?
Oh, my liege, my liege, liege. I am your servant.
Oh, okay.
Well, I play with language a lot in numbers
Good.
and color. These are the tools of detection. Color is the first cloak of force, right? So it goes white, force, color, numbers, symbols, right?
Yes.
Commonalities. And that's why it's really good to be a historian, collect all the marbles. And what that does is it strengthens your connectivity to what is real
Yes.
and not a dogma, not a closed circuit. Because the first principle of creation is grow or wither.
Yeah.
And they've tried to confine some areas because they might be ways to have the power and control. But the real power and control is the occupation of this design. So Jesus was giving the lessons of the pentagram, the 5 loaves, to the people.
Keeping them.
He was feeding the people
Yeah.
and giving them stories that they could take on, right? And they resonated with it because it was true and because they were living. He was talking about what they were as human beings. So he was, oddly enough, Arthur Pendragon from England. They came a lot. They came there a lot
Oh.
because he was running a pentagramic school,
Oh.
a development academy. So there's all these evidences of people that were on this track of understanding and using natural law and what they were seeing, right?
Yes.
So Arthur Pendragon had the round table, and he had 12 knights.
Now I
Jesus
get it.
Christ, the great teacher,
Yeah.
had the apostles. So Jesus fed the masses. He
Mhm.
gave them the pentagram. The apostles, who had already gotten the pentagram lessons,
Yeah.
they were the advanced students. And they're the ones that got the protein. They had to deal with the protein of the situation. Right?
I said protein. Yes.
Yeah, potency.
Yeah.
So here, we're going to give you a digestive tract and some understanding. And when you get your pentagram in balance, right, energetically, you might be able to sustain and hold the energetics that sit on it. So this is directly related to the activation of the pineal gland. So there's a lot of people that are messing around with DMT and all this stuff to get it to activate the head.
Yeah.
But it's supposed to be a natural process. And I'm not dissing the medicine people of the Amazon. That's their culture and their way.
Yeah.
But in the organic, in the creation program, and all these substances and everything are out there, and they are part of the creation. But I've seen more than one people.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things we need to discern is there's a lot of very inspiring people, and they've got a really excellent show. They present very professionally, and they have expensive suits, but that doesn't make them right. And a lot of people like getting, what's the name of that thing, right? So anyway, let's talk about two. So let's talk about silver and gold.
I-
So Jesus also was highly developed. He probably learned, as far as I know, he learned in everywhere from England to Tibet and India.
There's a
You know,
scripture that is just
I love Bible study.
a little bit of a side note in there, and says, Jesus did so many miraculous things that I suppose that all the books in the whole world would not be able to even contain all that Jesus did.
Of course
And
not, because this is part of the study of the Great Resistance. When life and green force are so powerful that a tiny little sprout powered by green can push through concrete,
yeah, yep.
right? So
Mhm.
don't underestimate your little finger.
The power of life.
Right. But he had cosmic power of life, the
Mhm.
all and everything, right? But
Yeah.
initially, physiologically, a lot of Christians they're like bhakti yogis. They're very much in love. And that expresses through the emotional center, which is in the throat. Okay. And this is a different system than the chakras, different color coding,
Okay.
different, but it's not right or wrong, but it's like both things, these things are all going on. And I
Mhm.
studied Kundalini yoga and practice it as well. I understand that this is something else.
Yeah.
This is the diagram that we need to grasp to move into the future.
Okay.
We need to understand and occupy this electromagnetic process in
Mhm.
order to properly receive the higher energetics that are coming in.
Okay.
Because you don't need to put high force into someone who can't handle it. Counterproductive. They'll go nuts, and I've seen it many times. You start dealing in high force, best to start and keep going back to the pentagram studies, because eventually you'll have the right content, right? You say, wow, I like that. When you start building and developing, this is the development way.
That reminds me of a tree, a fruit tree. It has a certain circumference in the trunk and it supports the tree, and that's beautiful. But if all the fruit comes under that circumference, the branches will break.
Yeah.
The tree goes through its seasons of taking in nutrients and widening, and sometimes pretty fast. We've been noticing ours. And pretty soon that tree is thick, and the fruit comes on a good year, and the branches hold strong,
Right.
and the fruit ripens.
And they also produce seeds for more trees.
Yes, absolutely. Lots.
So if you have let's just call it a balanced pentagram. It's like you're eating good food, right? You're selecting, you're in balance in your emotion, and you have clarity, your mentality, your mind, your head is working well. And what this does is it provides a cool platform or ecology for something else to be switched on, right? Now, the emotional body is very important in this, because when you have a buildup of experience and you get wonky, and then people have emotional outbursts, right? And they're crying and sobbing. And have you ever noticed that when all that's going on, they're not thinking?
I don't think we're wired to be able to do that.
Because emotion is wet. This chamber here is the womb of enlightenment, right? It's a container, right?
The mind.
Yes, brain, mind, mentality, all of these things have to be differentiated and understood in the process. But essentially what's going on is, if you're overflowing in your emotion, it was put in there, it's like a valve on a teapot, right? It's boiling, it goes, it lets off the pressure. But in a human, it needs to let off the pressure, and that's a protection mechanism for the higher functions. Because this is an electrical process up here, right?
Yes.
You have the creation's most remarkable computer, right? Do this scalp in there,
Yeah.
right? And it's an electrical machine. So people that get emotional tend to not to think very clearly because they're short-circuiting their head. So that's a very important chamber of reaction. And in the center of that, there's what's called the pineal gland. And organically, when you have a balanced pentagram, and you have essentially discovered that you can generate your own well-being,
Mhm.
you can put it in a can and sell it for $1. So the activation of the pineal gland is, in the Bible, they say, his cup spilleth over. Yeah?
Cup runneth over. Yes.
Whole process going in. He's talking, this is the cup. This is the chalice. Here's the cup. here's the stem, and here's the base. This is this is the chalice.
Yeah.
And so when that chalice gets activated, Jesus was in continuum of, it's called the silver chalice development, which is Christ's consciousness. That's the result. Because in this chamber of reaction, and silver is very potent and it enliven anything. Like here in town, we have a park, and on Wednesday nights, they have bands that come in and play. And it's really funny. I go down there and there's a lot of bluegrass. Right now, there's the bluegrass festival going on across town. But when a bluegrass band plays, that's the frequency of silver. It's fast, precise, and clean. And the kids start spinning like tops. They can't be. That's silver force. Okay. That's high, right? Low silver is when you could say that this is the low translation of Christianity, which is hot. It's hot. It's not cool. High silver is cool. And when in a silver project process, and I've seen other people do it, where basically you light up a room in your generation. And then things are coming together and weaving and going, and that's what happens. It's the activation of the theater of the higher self, the activation of the theater of the higher self. So it's also part of the duality in terms of how a healer should work. High healers will work with silver and gold force. On a man, my right hand is the transmitter, that's silver. On a man, my left hand is gold. Calms, puts things to sleep, heavy. I used to do public lectures on ancient Egypt, and everyone would go, because ancient Egypt is connected to such huge banks of gold force. And you connect into that, and it changes the atmosphere. And I've seen in process of silver force, silver rain falling in the room, electrical rain, silver rain, and it's a purifying force.
Yeah.
And I've seen gold atmospheres where someone's generating and getting on the tuning fork of the gold frequency, and everything gets fuzzy and you can't even see across the room, and it's very dense and heavy. Your legs feel like they weigh a zillion pounds.
Yeah.
You struggle to stay awake with this.
Yeah.
There's actually also another frequency known as platinum, so we won't go there. But so silver and gold are very integral. Being that the higher aspect, right, needs to have the support of the pentagram to activate.
Thank you for joining us on this learning journey into the invisible forces that shape our lives. As we've explored today, understanding electromagnetic energy isn't just about science or spirituality. It's about seeing the connections that run through every thought, every relationship, every moment in our existence. How might your life change if you recognize the subtle energies at play in your daily interactions? What new possibilities could open up if you approached each day with the awareness that you are both a receiver and a generator of energy, love, and intention? Remember, the wisdom of ancient traditions and the discoveries of modern science both point to the truth that we are all connected, and the power to transform our world begins within each of us. If you found value in this conversation, share it with someone who might need a spark of inspiration. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep on shining your unique, amazing light. This is Colleen Akiko, and you've been listening to We Be the Change. You can help keep this podcast ad-free by becoming a subscriber, which also provides you immediate access to bonus content and resources. Find more info at songrise.live. That's SONGRISE.LIVE. Stay curious, stay connected, and we'll see you in the next episode, where I'm going to be interjecting a timely surprise guest and topic before we resume the following week with this series, Navigating the New Energetics.